On today's program, I do something a little different and interview comedian Mark Normand. Mark Normand is a professional comedian working out of New York City. He's done 2 specials for Comedy Central, appeared on Conan O'Brien 4 times, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, Inside Amy Schumer, True TV, MTV, Last Comic Standing, and we have a great conversation today about the world of comedy and what it's like being a comedian, the mechanics of writing a joke, preparing yourself, working the audience. It's pretty cool. To learn more about my guest, visit marknormandcomedy.com. Mark Normand, how are you?
Hey, sorry, I just woke up.
You just woke up.
Yeah, it's a crazy story, but I'm up. I'm ready. Let's do it.
So did you hear the big news today? I guess you haven't since you've just woken up. Well, you're waking up to the post. Barry Manilow is gay now.
Oh, really?
He outed himself this morning.
Hey, good for him. It's about time. We all knew it. Hallelujah. All right, Manilow. Boy, the world's changing, huh? Finally some news that isn't crazy. Hey, Caitlyn Jenner's a woman or whatever the hell. Bill Cosby's a rapist. Barry Manilow's gay. Great. That one actually checks out.
Anyway, today's program isn't about Barry Manilow. I'd like to learn about the secrets of the trade, and let's start with preparation. You've talked about anxiety on the stage. How do you prepare yourself? Do you drink? Do you smoke some weed? Do you do a little coke? Even among your peer group, what do they do? How do you prepare yourself for the stage?
I see comedians doing all kinds of stuff, stretching, shadow boxing, drinking, a lot of weed. There's a lot of weed in this biz. But for me, I'd rather go on sober. For me, I'm anxious my whole life until I go on stage. On stage is the one place I feel pretty good because A, comedy can be honed as a skill, so you get pretty good at it. I've been doing it about 10 years. B, you know what you're going to say, basically. You have your jokes ready, unless they're brand new. And then C, it's, I know I'm a funny guy, so I can just be funny if I need to. And you kind of learn, no one really talks about it, but you don't just learn comedy, you also learn how not to bomb over time. So I think learning not to bomb is kind of a skill more than just being funny, if that makes sense.
Performing not to bomb, though, is that playing it safe? Are you saying something different?
No, I'm kind of saying something different. I guess playing it safe is a whole other thing, but learning how to not bomb is like, okay, if my jokes aren't working, you can go into the crowd. If that's not working, you can make fun of the situation you're in and talk about how you're kind of not doing well and how it's a weird night and kind of riff on all that. And then you can tell what jokes they'll like better. You can go into the dirty stuff or you can go into the cleaner stuff, depending on what kind of crowd it is. So you're kind of gauging the whole time what works and what doesn't, and then keep doing that.
Okay, so there's a whole lot more improvisation. You said before, though, you know what you're going to say, but if it's not working, you got to change it up.
Yeah, like you have your jokes that are bulletproof, or you should, and those will usually work. But if they don't, then yeah, you got to pull out the old riff, off the cuff stuff.
What happens if you have a bad audience, or is there such a thing?
Oh, I hate that whole thing. There's definitely a bad audience. I mean, there's audiences that are waiting for you to bomb. They're just sitting there with their arms crossed, stone facing you, because they hated the guy before, or they feel like they got duped on the whole show, so now they're not going to laugh at you, or they don't like the way you look. So there's bad crowds, but you really can't spend your life blaming them. You'll never get anywhere. So you have to. Even if they're bad, you have to perform in front of them and try to make them laugh and try to win them over. And that's really what makes you good. It's kind of like when you're lifting weights. Those last few hard ones to get the bar up, that's where the muscle's coming in.
Well, you're definitely not a stranger to bombing, Mark. I don't think any comedian is. But it was, in fact, during a bad set that you got discovered by Amy Schumer after she heard you tell a joke about wheat thins.
I was bombing when one joke worked, and she happened to see the one joke that worked. So she didn't really see the bomb, believe it or not. The timing was so crazy that she was walking in, I was bombing. I tried another joke. That joke killed, and she kind of walked in that 40-second period and then I went back to my other jokes, and those jokes bombed.
I know it's a standard question comedians get, but how badly have you bombed?
Oh boy, I got booed like 2 weeks ago. I've had just some horrible bombs. Yeah, like, in the beginning, you don't know what the hell you're doing. I used to go up to these rooms in Harlem just for kicks, and I bombed so bad in there. They cut my microphone. They booed me. Then the host went on after me and just totally dressed me down and shit all over me. So that was an eye opener.
Holy shit, that's rough.
Yeah, that was.
How do you go back on stage after that? I mean, that would shatter most people's confidence forever.
You're so distraught. I mean, I was in my apartment the next day, just like tossing and turning in bed. I couldn't sleep. I hated myself. I was like, "What are you doing? Get it together. You moved up here, and you really have nowhere else to go." Or at least I didn't. I couldn't be like, "Well, I'll start being an accountant now." No, I'm a comic. I chose to be a comic. I feel like I can do it. So you just keep going, and it pushes you to actually work harder in a way. But boy, it is a bad feeling. I'll tell you, it stinks. Bombing sucks. I mean, the humiliation, no one really talked about it, but the humiliation of bombing and not doing well is a hell of a motivator.
I can't imagine booing ever, no matter how bad the comedian was.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy, unless a comic goes up and
That's
goes,
a douchebag thing to do. That's just heckling, right?
Yeah, that's an insane way to treat people. I mean, unless they're like, your mother's a fat whore, and then you're like, boo, that I get. But if you're just like, so, refrigerators are weird.
Or you go all Cosmo Kramer, right?
Yeah, all right, there you go. Boo that guy, but...
Laugh Factory.
I'm just telling jokes.
Have you seen any fellow comedians get so distraught, so torn down from a bad set that they've quit entirely?
Yeah, I think so. It's pretty rare, but it takes more than one set usually. It takes a kind of a few bad sets over time to really break someone down. One bad set, you can blame the crowd, you can blame yourself. Oh, I had an off night or whatever. But if you start having bombs all day long every day for weeks, then you're like, all right, maybe this isn't for me. But on the flip side, I know guys who. There was this one comic in particular. I'm not going to say his name, but he was so bad that when he would go up, me and my friends would bet, like, all right, $5 says he doesn't get one laugh in 10 minutes. And he'd go, I'll give you $10. I'll say $10 he doesn't get one laugh in 20 minutes. And we'd literally be in the stands, like exchanging cash like it was a fucking cockfight. And now he's great. He just turned it around somehow. He just figured it out. Now he's hilarious.
Have you seen it the other way around? Where a comedian was great and then just loses it?
Yeah, I actually have seen that. That's the thing about comedy is you got to keep working it. You got to just go out every night and write every day and keep getting on stage. And I've seen a lot of guys who are hilarious who just didn't have that drive. They were just like, fuck it, I'm staying in today. I'm not going out. And now they're just kind of soft and weak comedically.
Well, let's talk about comedy as a trade. Can comedy be learned? Let's say you don't have a lot of talent or maybe any talent. Can you learn comedy and become funny through experience?
Nah, I don't think so. I think you need the talent. I think some people have squeaked by. There's going to be some guy on a cruise ship or a TV show maybe who's just super handsome or just good personality, like kind of lively, light up a room, charisma, but not actually a funny person. There's a lot of guys who aren't funny is this special certain thing. Like people use that word, they'll be like, Jenny McCarthy's so funny. I'm like, no, she's not funny. She's just goofy and wacky. She's not actually a funny person. If you gave her a microphone and put her on stage without any act or jokes, she couldn't make it work. I think a funny person is just funny in the moment. It's in their bones, and so I think the thing about comedy, the thing about stand-up that's so hard is like Will Ferrell tried stand-up, couldn't do it. Greg Kinnear tried stand-up, couldn't do it. Now he got an Academy Award, but he couldn't do stand-up. So like stand-up is so hard because it's not only is it funny, but you have to be presentable, you have to be likable, basically. You have to get the crowd to understand why your thoughts are funny in front of them in real time. So you have to not only be funny, but adapt it into a way that they understand why it's funny and then laugh in front of you immediately. So it's a crazy, crazy concept, stand-up comedy. So it's totally different because I can giggle about something in my bedroom, and then if I tell it on stage, they'll just go, huh, what? So I have to take that thing I giggled about, figure out why it's funny, and then kind of make it accessible with certain words to strangers, and they have to laugh at it. So it's a really, when you think about it, it's a really hard thing to do. It's a hard art form. That's really the art form, is translating it to the masses.
Can you talk about the history of the art form? As I understand, stand-up comedy is primarily an American phenomenon. You don't see stand-up in Pakistan.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. It's definitely American. I think it was all Jews mostly. I think it was vaudeville. Because back in the day, performers were like a low rung on the employment line. It was like garbage men, then performer, then bookie or whatever the hell. It was pretty low. So back then it was just poor people trying to make a buck, and they were just riding the rails, going all over the country, juggling and slipping and pratfalls and falling on a banana peel and telling jokes in between. And then at some point the jokes in between vaudeville acts became a kind of a skill. Like, all right, I need more jokes. I'm hosting all night. I got to cover 20 minutes. So I just need jokes and jokes and jokes. And then eventually those jokes became the act. And then you had guys just doing comedy. And the term stand-up comedian came from the mob, because the mob ran all these kind of speakeasy dive bar joints where a comic would go up and perform. And if you would kill a guy, if the mob killed a guy in front of you and you didn't tell anybody, you were a stand-up guy. Like you weren't a snitch. So they called you a stand-up guy, and that's where stand-up comic came from. Because when you think about it, cashiers are standing up, but we don't call them a stand-up cashier. But a comic is a stand-up guy because they didn't snitch on you when you killed that mark.
That's fascinating. That's cool.
Yeah. The comedy is sadly the only thing I know the history of. I've read a couple books on this.
That is so cool. Stand-up comedian. I will never forget that. That is so great.
There you go.
Do you ever get mistaken for Fred Savage?
I get Fred Savage all the time. I've gotten Shia LaBeouf. I've gotten Adam Levine a few times. He's the guy from The Voice.
Yeah, that's kind of a compliment, eh?
Yeah, I guess a compliment, but I think I'm too curly-haired for him. Also, he's very douchey and thin-faced. I'm a little more rounded. I got John Cusack once or twice when I was younger. Or when he was younger.
Well, what about looking funny? Some guys just don't look funny.
Well, I will say, I'm kind of glad I'm not like a super. I'm not like a handsome guy, which I'm kind of glad about, because I feel like handsome guys, they have it easier in the business for like TV and movies. I don't think they, it's sad to say, but I think the struggle in life makes you funny. Like Louis C.K. is a balding, redhead, chubby guy. And I think that adds to the comedy. Struggle is funny. Hardship is funny. That's why like minorities are so funny. They got to struggle. They got it harder. They're the underdog, and I think that makes you funnier.
Well, comedy is born of tragedy. Is that true?
It's so cliche, and I think there's exceptions, but I think it is true. Yeah. I mean, look at Richard Pryor.
Okay, so did you go through hardships growing up to develop this skill of yours?
Well, I mean, I'm a mess. I go to therapy. My therapist is always blown away by how crazy and fucked up I am. So I was a bedwetter. I grew up in a horrible neighborhood. I grew up in a weird household. My parents are crazy. So like there's all kinds of shit. I mean, I was robbed a lot. I wasn't I'm a white male in America, so I was okay there, but yeah, I had a lot of weird stuff. Wore braces for years and crazy dandruff and all that stuff. So I had some weird shit. I had a lot of moles on me. I had to get lanced. Crazy ear infections. I had tubes in my ears as a kid. So I had some stuff, but I think it's mostly the internal struggle for me. That's really the real tragedy.
I can't think of any great stand-up comedian who was born rich. Well, perhaps Amy Schumer.
She had a tough go. I mean, grew up poor on Long Island. Dad has MS.
Well, her uncle's that Chuck Schumer, right? So I just assumed that she was rich.
No, that she was rich till she was 2, I think, or something. I don't want to botch the story because I don't. She's already in enough hot water, so I don't want to misrepresent her life. But she I think her parents went bankrupt when she was like 4. Then the parents split up. She moved to Long Island. Then the dad got MS. Now he's in a wheelchair, shitting himself. And they were Jewish on Long Island, this non-Jewy area, so they got a lot of shit for that. So there was some shit going on there. Plus, it's all a mental thing. We're all messed up inside.
You know who I saw last night? The date and I, we watched about a half hour of your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then we watched Jim Norton's special, Mouthful of Shame.
Sure.
Have you seen that?
I saw about half it. I like Jim. He's a funny guy.
I've never thought he was a great stand-up guy. I think he's just amazing on the mic.
Uh-huh.
He's fast.
So quick.
No one's faster. Very quick. Dangerous. But I've never thought he was a great stand-up comedian. This act puts him on a different level, though.
I agree. I think I was the same way. I was like, man, he's so quick. He's so funny. But I wasn't crazy about his stand-up because it was just so raunchy for raunchy's sake. And I thought his last one was amazing, and I thought this one was good, too.
Now you see the evolution of a comic, right? It's all about going with what works and throwing out what doesn't. Like, how do you know a joke is funny? Does it make you laugh? Performing it in front of a friend, what's that worth? You got to take it to the stage, eh? Or is it just enough that it makes you laugh?
No, rarely. People always tell you that. Hey, do what you think is funny. You got to be true to yourself. If I do what I think is funny, it'd be 20 minutes on rape and anal and Jews and pedophilia that would get nothing. So I have to you have to compromise no matter what. I don't care what anybody says, unless you're beloved or whatever. You got to compromise. But it's the humiliation. You're sitting there writing on a steno pad in your room, and you're going, all right, well, I think this is funny, and then you go, holy hell, I got to bring this in front of people who paid to see comedy and try this out in front of them. And that'll make you put your head down one more time and go, is this actually funny? Are we really doing this? You're really going to bring this out to a paid audience? You better make sure this is funny. So you really try to tweak it and make it as good as possible because, A, you're kind of failing at your job, and 2, it's just goddamn humiliating, and 3, you don't want to be a fucking bad comic. So that'll get you to really make sure that shit's good on paper. And, and you need the audience. You can talk all day. Your ratio gets better. When you start out, you got 20 ideas, and one of them might be decent. And then as you do comedy longer and longer, you probably have like 5 ideas, and one of them is decent. So you do get better at it, but it's never 100%.
Is it important to elicit empathy from the audience to make things relatable?
I think they have to relate, but I think anything can be relatable. Even if you're talking about your private jet, as douchey as that would be, I think you can make it relatable. I mean, look at rappers. Rappers talk all day about, hey, I got my bitch here, and I got my Glock, and I got my 9, and I shoot my kid in the face, and I, jizz on my daughter, and I got my jewelry and my wine, or whatever the hell, my Dom P and my Benz. I don't have any of that shit, but I listen, I go, hey, this is fun. Because you could relate to wanting to be that, big shot or whatever. So it's anything can be relatable. Hey, this guy grew up in the ghetto. Now he's got money. Whoa, that's rags to riches. Maybe I could do it. All right. Then you get all into it.
How about the way you dress? Is it important to dress in a way that the audience would dress? Bringing up Jimmy Norton again. He was wearing sneakers, jeans, and a shirt. Simple outfit. As opposed to a suit and tie.
I think it's just a lack of a distraction for Jimmy. I think Jimmy's a big, I don't want to stand out, outfit-wise, because then it gives you something to make fun of. It kind of makes you a target. If you're out there wearing a pink shirt, everybody goes, what's up with this pink shirt? and you can't really get into the act, you know. So the black T-shirt and the jeans, it's almost just like, hey, look, pay attention to my jokes, not my clothes. And I want the clothes to be the last thing in your mind. And then the guy who goes up in a suit, it's almost the same thing, because a suit is the most, you know, basic outfit a man can wear. Just a jacket, a tie, and pants. So it's just, I think those are just both ends of the spectrum of looking completely normal and not flashy.
But then you've got Eddie Murphy in Raw.
Right. Yeah, that's him going, fuck it, I am flashy. Let's bring it on.
Do you see other comedians trying to pull an Andy Kaufman? You know, trying to go out of the box, do something completely different, and breaking all the so-called rules of stand-up?
I see it all the time, and I think there's definitely some balls to it. It takes a lot of guts to go up there and just totally reinvent and try some weird new thing. I don't know if it's for me. I was a huge Kaufman fan when I was younger. I mean, just to flip the whole art form on its head like that is crazy. I mean, I really respect it, especially when you're good at it, because a lot of people try it and it just, there's nothing to it. You're like, oh, this is weird for weird's sake, and nobody gives a shit. But I mean, Kaufman was a genius, and just to be that weird.
Not everyone thinks he's funny.
I think he's funny as hell. I think he's great. I think he's crazy, but I think he tapped into something special. That's for sure.
Who is the greatest comedian of all time?
Well, this is always where it gets a little dicey, because I think George Carlin is the best comedian of all time, but I think Richard Pryor is the funniest comedian of all time. I'll explain. Carlin has some of the best jokes, greatest insights. You know, he can do puns, he can do stories, he can do jokey jokes, he can do dirty, he can do clean, he can do philosophical, he can do social commentary. He's got every genre covered. He's got it all. But then Richard Pryor is just, you know, flat out hilarious, just like a funny guy. Like if you put George Carlin and Richard Pryor on a couch on Johnny Carson, Pryor's going to shine way, way more. Probably a bad choice of words there. But he's going to really, you know, look great. And Carlin's just going to sit there, because Carlin was more of a writer. He's more of a mind, a mental guy. You know, he's a thinker. But Pryor's just, his jokes and his set is just hilarious. I mean, I could go into his whole act, but that live in concert is probably the best special of all time.
The best he did was that Redbone character.
Oh, I hated the Redbone. Mudbone.
Oh, really?
Mudbone.
Oh, I loved it. The Live at the Sunset Strip or whatever, I love that act.
Really? I mean, I get it. I guess I never knew that guy, so I always hated that part. I was like, oh, come on, get back to the jokes. But I get it. It wasn't for me. But I think it was Mudbone, was it not? Was it Mudbone or Redbone?
Yeah, it could have been Mudbone. There was a bone in there.
It's definitely a big bone. I got a bone in me. But yeah, I think Carlin's the best, because and not to mention he did fucking 14 specials, and there's a lot of bad in there, but there's a lot of amazing stuff. And
yeah, I've seen Carlin bomb.
Oh yeah, I've seen him bomb too. Where'd you see him?
No, I've never seen him. I've seen him bomb on television, though, on some of his shows. Some of his older stuff I thought was a bit weaker.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, all that hippy-dippy weatherman. I wasn't crazy about all that. When he kind of did the...
Yeah, that stuff.
Yeah, that was corny.
Hey, this is the weatherman. Yeah, that act. I didn't like that one.
I didn't like all that either. And that's the problem, is a lot of people, they check out George Carlin, they see that shit, and they go, oh, this guy stinks. He's one of the best? What the hell? But then you got to get into the later stuff. Like that, in the 90s, I feel like he was really killing it.
Yeah, he peaked in the 90s, absolutely. And then, actually, I'll even say his last special, when his face started getting a bit pudgier, you know?
Uh-huh.
And he'd kind of lost his timing just a bit.
Yeah, still good, but yeah. I agree.
Let me ask you this. Are you peaking? Are you at your peak?
Oh, man, I don't know. I felt like I had a good stride like this time last year, where I was really in the groove. And now I feel like the more I know about stand-up, the more I learn about comedy, the more I don't like my act, because I know more about it. So I go, oh, this is easy, this sucks, this has been done. So now I'm like way harsher than I used to be. And it's getting to be a bummer, but, you know, I'm just going to stick with it, and maybe I'm just at a hump right now I got to get over.
But you've clearly broken into the business. You've been on Conan 4 times, Colbert, Inside Amy Schumer. You were on Jim and Sam's podcast last week.
I do that show a lot. I've got an hour special coming out. I'm doing Fallon in May. I've done At Midnight a bunch. I've done a good amount of stuff, but I don't know. You never feel like I never feel like I cracked the code. I don't know. I still sit down with a paper and a pad and go, what the hell is this? This sucks. I don't know what I'm doing. So it's always hard. That's why comics fall off. You see like, oh my God, David Brenner was so funny. And then you go see him live and you're like, this guy sucks. Why did I ever think this guy was good? Fuck him. And then, because comedy's a full-time job, you got to keep doing it. You got to do it every day. A female comic has a kid, and her act suffers, and she's can't hit the stage that hard and that much, and you get soft over time, and that's why Louis C.K. is the best, because he just does it and does it and does it and does it, and he does it an hour every year like a fucking maniac. So that's why he's so sharp. I see Seinfeld all the time, who I used to love as a kid. He was like my hero. And he's like, a little out of touch and a little weaker. And it's kind of a bummer. You really have to do it. It's like boxing. You got to just do it every day.
I was going to bring up Seinfeld. That's interesting, because he scrapped his whole routine, right? And then
that was impressive. That documentary.
And then built it back up again. That's what that comedian movie was based on.
But even that was good stuff, because that was him working every night, getting after it. But now he's, got a nice cushy home with a family, and he can sit at home and go, screw it, I'll stay in, which is totally fine. He's earned that. I'm not saying, he shouldn't be able to do that. He's one of the biggest.
But Seinfeld's not naturally funny. Like, he's not quick. Funny guy, but he's not as quick as Jim Norton.
Yeah, maybe not. Never thought about that. I think he's got an amazing brain. He's got a good eye. He's got a good work ethic, obviously. They called him the scientist back in the day. He would just tinker with a fucking joke like it was an Asian, old Asian man with a bird cage where he's just putting little sticks together and glue. And, but I think he's kind of, he was really needed at that time. That time needed a Seinfeld. That observational thing was fresh kind of, and it was like he was kind of doing Cosby, but more in an Americana way. He was a real suburban guy, and all that really showed, and there was no sex or dirty or anything. So I think people liked him a lot at that time, and he was fresh. And now it's kind of like, now he's almost a punchline where you go, what's the deal? And that's all from him. But I still think he's great. I think his old stuff is amazing.
No, I think he's great. I belong to the Church of Seinfeld.
All right, the Church of Seinfeldology.
Yeah, I bought a No Soup for You shirt yesterday.
Oh, there you go.
New York comedians versus L.A. comedians. For me, the New York comedian is the best. Why are New York comedians so funny?
Well, I think, L.A. does have its fair share of great comics, but I think, New York, it's a comedy town. It's the city's funny. It's very humbling. You can do Madison Square Garden and you're back on the subway in 20 minutes like a fucking loser sitting amongst the masses, And so the humbling is good. Humbleness keeps you funny. And then the competition is crazy. And also the New York comics, we kind of all know each other, so you have to, if you do something, if I see somebody doing an old Cosby bit, I got to go up and go, hey man, that's a Cosby bit. And they go, oh shit, all right, thanks for telling me. So I think the competition's crazy. You got your friends start passing you up, so then you got to get back on track and with them, and it's a constant rat race of comedy. And also in New York, in LA, I feel like there's a gateway, like comedy. If you do really well in LA, some agent's going to see you, and boom, you're on the TV show. But in New York, you're just trying to be a good comic. You just keep working and working to be a greater and better, amazing comedian. It's almost like comedy college up here. You just move here and you just hit the books.
Where's the best club? Is that the Cellar?
Comedy Cellar, 4 shows a night, every night, always sold out. Louis C.K., Seinfeld, Ray Romano, Chris Rock, all popping in. You gotta you can't, if you bomb, they don't let you work there anymore. So you have to be on your game. Great club. Hard to get into, hard to stay in.
Have you performed there, Mark?
I've been there for 5 years.
And you've never bombed?
Oh, sure, I bombed. I bombed there. I mean, yeah, I've bombed there before, but I don't make it a habit.
Like Comedy Cellar. I can't wait. I'm going to New York, as you know. I'm going to be a guest on the Anthony Cumia show. Have you been on his show?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so how was it doing Anthony's show, and do you have any advice for me?
Well, I think we all heard the news, back in the day, but it's very irreverent, just very it's no holds barred, we'll say. So just get in there and cut loose and try to be funny. And his fans are a bit what's the word? Aggressive, confrontational. So be careful there. Just try to do a good job so they don't ruin your life.
I'm not worried about that. What do you think of Anthony Cumia's chops? He's pretty fast too, isn't he? But not a stand-up.
I think he's very fast. Yeah, he's not a stand-up, but he's a really funny guy, and funny, just dark humor, and I like his, he's really inappropriate, and he's not offended by anything, which I find refreshing. But yeah, he's just a funny blue-collar dude who's quick as hell, and just throw back a beer or two, and good funny guy.
Mark, tell the audience about your weekly podcast you're doing with Joe List. You were so burnt out from your podcast last night, you barely woke up for the show.
Yeah, we did a live one last night. It got pretty wild. Amy Schumer showed up, and Robert Kelly was on. It was a long night, but yeah, me and Joe List, a good buddy of mine, also one of the quickest guys out there. He was on fire last night, but he had this great idea because he's a big hanger-outer. Like he loves the comedian hang at a diner at 4 a.m., just bouncing bits, being funny. He loves that, and he thought, why don't we make that into a podcast? Every podcast is, what's your process? How'd you get into it? Let's make it just a funny, joke-slinging, hour-long, yuck-em-up, crack-wise kind of podcast. So we have a good rapport. So he got me together. I'm the co-host. We host it together, and then the first couple episodes it's like me, Joe, and two other comics at a table just trying to be funny for an hour, just telling stories and cracking jokes. And it didn't really work out, but we just kept doing it. And then we noticed that if we didn't have a guest, it was way funnier. It was just me and him going back and forth, almost like a George and Jerry at the diner kind of thing, kind of a just banter. And he would tell a story, and I would interject jokes, and I would tell a story, he would interject jokes. And then it kind of just evolved and grew and grew. And then one time we did a gig at a firehouse together, and then we went back on the podcast and talked about it. And that was really that was like the evolution right there, because it was the first story we had. We were both in it. So we're both telling the story about something we both did. And that's when I feel like we really found it. And now it's doing pretty well. It's like we just sold out the show last night, and people are quoting a lot of lines and sending us photos and food and all these gifts and shit. So it's pretty cool. People are really into it, and it's kind of become its own thing.
How can the audience listen to this podcast? Is it premium audio?
We don't have the self-esteem to go premium. So we're all free, iTunes, SoundCloud, whatever the hell you want, Stitcher, Laughable, whatever you got. So it's on all that shit, and give it a download. It's pretty funny. It's very offensive. It's very irreverent, very naughty. We don't hold back. A lot of racial slurs, a lot of stereotypes.
What's the name of the show, Mark?
It's called Tuesdays with Stories.
And it's on every Tuesday?
Every Tuesday. It'll pop up at midnight on Monday. I'm going to record one right now after this phone call.
I hate doing this to you because you're not a dancing bear, but why the fuck not? Can you tell me the wheat thins joke that made you famous?
Sure. It's not even a great joke, but the joke is basically, the setup is, I think people use the term or the phrase, I don't fuck around, a little too loosely. A friend of mine went to the grocery store, he came back, he was unloading the bags, And I went, oh, wheat thins. And he goes, yeah, I don't fuck around. And I was like, you bought crackers. I don't fuck around is for a guy who brings a gun to a knife fight, you know? And then that was it. And then the rest of the joke is, you know, why are we so quick to not fuck around? I love fucking around. We're fucking around right now, you know? Anytime somebody says, are you fucking around? I say, hell yeah, I love fucking around. It's very Seinfeldian at the end there. But, yeah, that's the bit. Horrible old joke. And I said the word fuck like 8 times, which always bothered me.
You know which one I laughed at last night was the riddled with sprinkles. I like that one.
Oh, you like that? That
Yeah.
joke's not for everybody, so I appreciate
Really?
that.
No, that one was a winner in this house.
Oh, great. Thank you. That was on Colbert.
Why wheat thins? I'm talking about the mechanics, right? Why choose that particular cracker over, say, a Ritz or a Triscuit? Tits on a Ritz. A Ritz can be funny.
Well,
but you chose wheat thins.
Ritz is funny, but I went with wheat thins because that's what happened. My roommate came home.
Oh, so it's actually a true story. Some of this shit that you talk about is actually true.
Of course, yeah. The truth is usually the funniest. Sometimes it's not, but I think 90% of the time.
I was going to say you couldn't use Triscuit because I know Seinfeld's used Triscuit.
Triscuit's a funnier word, but yeah, it's been used, so I had to go wheat thin.
What kind of advice would you give to someone who's maybe looking to go to an open mic for the first time? Should they bring friends, family into the audience to make them feel better?
No, Jesus Christ. Just get out there and do it. Strangers, you're going to have to make strangers laugh eventually, so get those, the friends and family, that's training wheels. You know, you got to get those off and really get that bike rolling upright. So just go out there and bomb it up and fail and try again and fail and try again and fail, and that's comedy. Strangers are way better. You want a real reaction. I see all these people with bringer shows killing with horrible hack shit, killing because the audience knows them and everything. So yeah, strangers are the way to go. Don't bring your family. You don't want you to see your family's face when you're on stage. That's gross. Come on. I want to look down and see my aunt. No, I'm talking about my asshole. I want to see Bob from the mill.
And then can you fucking imagine? And then having nothing to work with, right? You got no material. So you do some Carlos Mencia shit and you just lift it up, change this around and do your thing. I'm sure that's happened.
Happens all the time. And, the younger, like a lot of the newer guys, they don't get why that's so horrible. So you go up and you go, hey, man, that's...
Well, it's plagiarism. It's fucking obvious.
Yeah, like that's a Bill Cosby joke. And they go, well, hey, come on, I got to kill up there. I'm dying here. I'm like, well, fuck you. You shouldn't be doing this then. I never got these people who steal because comedy it's your point of view. Like, that's the whole game. You want the audience to know who you are and get you and your personality and your thought process. So unless you're stealing a bit that's exactly something you've thought, I guess that's, they're maybe that's what they're trying to do. But comedy's all about your angle. Mitch Hedberg is up there going, donuts? Well, I don't need a receipt for donuts. I mean, that's so him. That's why he was great. If he's going up there talking about...
You know what? It's been said that only Mitch Hedberg could make those lines funny.
I completely agree. Yeah. And that's what I'm talking about. You want to be that guy. You don't want to, obviously you don't want the heroine, but you want to be the guy who's got his own voice. Even Seinfeld. Seinfeld has jokes about toothbrushes and cereal and all that shit, and he makes it work. I don't know. I couldn't do it the way he does it, and I don't think he could do the jokes I'm doing.
So do you feel that Mark Normand has his own flavor?
I think I'm getting there. I think I'm finally tapping into something, but god damn, it took forever. Finding your voice it's a tough, tough thing. And I don't think you can worry about it. I think you just got to go out and be you. You can't sit there. I used to sit there and go, what is me? Who am I? What is my voice? And that's never good. You got to just do it. And whatever you're doing is your voice, but it's right in front of you and you can't even see it. It's the craziest thing.
Mark Normand, let me ask about this new special, Don't Be Yourself, debuts on May 12th.
That's correct, sir. It's on Comedy Central, May 12th. Check it out. I worked really hard on it. It's years of work. It's a joke, at least a joke every 30, 40 seconds. I saw a review for a comedy special recently that said, "Not too packed with punchlines," as if that was a good thing. Mine is packed with punchlines, so I go into some heavy stuff, but I keep it loose and silly, and I go into race and women and gay and transgender and drinking and anxiety, so it's all in there. It's some heavy stuff, religion and getting older. So we cover everything, and I hope you like it.
Mark, it's been great having you on the show. To the audience, visit marknormandcomedy.com. Check out his Comedy Central special on May 12th. Been a great show, man. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, Russ, and sorry if that was weird, and I appreciate you having me on. I'm sorry, it could have been funnier, but I'm a real comedy nerd, so you got me talking about this shit, and I get all into it, and sappy and gay.